Please take a few minutes to watch our videos sharing in the precious lives lost to drug-induced homicide. My name is Terry Almanza. I'm a grieving mother, a retired Chicago police officer, and the founder of the Forgotten Victims of Drug-Induced Homicide. I want to first start off by extending my deepest condolences to the families that have experienced the indescribable pain of losing a loved one to drugs. I would also like to extend my deepest gratitude to our countless supporters. On May 31, 2015, my family suffered the tragic loss of our 18-year-old daughter Sydney after drug dealers Brent Tyson and Cynthia Parker offered her ecstasy as a way to escape her pain. At the age of 3, Sydney lost her biological mother Sherry to cancer, and at the ages of 4 and 5, Sydney was repeatedly sexually assaulted by her 35-year-old male cousin, who is now a registered sex offender. Like most victims, Sydney carried that trauma for over a decade. I share all of this not because I'm looking for sympathy, but rather to educate the judicial system and the public to best understand that no one grows up wanting to suffer from the disease of addiction. Many of our loved ones suffering from childhood trauma, depression, mental illness, are falling prey to the countless physicians that negligently prescribe opioids, ultimately creating that patient's addiction. My daughter's case was closed by the Chicago Police Department without any investigation and classified as non-criminal. I knew what took place was criminal and warranted an investigation. I identified the 1989 Illinois criminal statute drug-induced homicide, which is defined as the unlawful delivery of a controlled substance resulting in a death, a criminal statute rarely used in Cook County. Pursuing these criminals sends a clear and unmistakable message to drug dealers that if you choose to profit from the misery and the suffering of others, that our judicial system will pursue you, and should the unthinkable tragedy of a fatal drug toxicity death occur because of your unlawful delivery, expect a knock on your door with an arrest warrant for drug-induced homicide. In Pennsylvania, a coroner by the name of Charles Kiesling and president of the Pennsylvania Coroners Association is listing the cause of death related to drug toxicity deaths as murder on the death certificates of victims. Coroner Kiesling further stating that these are not accidental deaths, these are homicides, drug dealers are murderers. In a recent statement, McHenry County State's Attorney's Office shared that its recent success proceeds from a balanced approach and recognition that both recovery services and, yes, the penal system have played a significant role. Despite this heartening expansion of treatment, it is undeniable that exceptional police work and law enforcement's commitment to painstakingly investigating every drug toxicity death in this county has been impactful. Drug-induced homicide is a serious Class X felony that can be used to target and imprison dealers for at least 6 years and up to 30 years if the drugs they distribute, namely fentanyl, analogs of fentanyl, and heroin, cause a death. McHenry County State's Attorney's Office shared that the drug-induced homicide statute has proven to minimize the number of drug toxicity deaths. People often refer to these deaths as overdoses. I do not. My daughter did not overdose. This was not an accident, as both dealers boasted as to the purity of the ecstasy that they delivered to my daughter, who they referred to as an inexperienced user. An emergency room physician explained it best. The term overdose is used only to describe the action that led to the recommended diagnostic term, which is a poisoning. If a cyclist falls and breaks a bone, we call it a fracture and not a bicycle fall. What's happening in the body of the patient is a poisoning. We shouldn't need to refer to how the patient got there. They are two separate issues. The word overdose stigmatizes drug users. When a patient has overconsumed alcohol, we call it alcohol poisoning. We do not refer to it as an alcohol overdose. People often say that my child made a choice. My child never made a choice to die, nor did any of these lives shared within this video. Each paid with their life. When will the dealers pay for their role in peddling poison for profit? Far too many law enforcement agencies have no protocol implemented ensuring that every suspected drug toxicity death is thoroughly investigated, protecting the crime scene, collecting evidence, gathering statements of persons on scene, and collecting the victim's cell phone to identify a digital footprint of the events that took place leading to the death. Far too many of our children's cases are dismissed within the judicial system as just another dead junkie, a throwaway, part of Darwin's theory of weeding out the weak. Our children's lives matter, and they too deserve justice. We implore that our judicial system investigate every drug toxicity death as I can attest that these drug dealers do not stop. While out on bond for the homicide of my daughter, both defendants were arrested by Orland Park Police Department after selling 110 hits of LSD and 1 gram of ecstasy to an undercover police officer. These people do not stop, and they will not stop. It is the responsibility of our judicial system to rid our streets of these murderers. We will not be silenced. I am thankful that both of the persons responsible for poisoning my daughter were convicted of drug-induced homicide, but I am disheartened by the countless homicides that are dismissed within our judicial system, leaving families without any closure and giving the green light to the persons profiting from our pain. I'd like to leave you with a few statistics. In the last 4 years, opioid-related deaths have spiked by nearly 500% in Chicago. More people are dying from lethal poisonings as opposed to homicides by firearms, but still very few cases are prosecuted in Illinois. African Americans make up 50% of the opioid-related deaths in Cook County. According to the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, 4,363 opioid-related deaths have been reported in Chicago since 2014. Of those 4,363 opioid-related deaths in Chicago, only 2 lethal poisonings have resulted in a conviction for drug-induced homicide. That is not justice. We must do better. Every drug toxicity death warrants a criminal investigation. When bad things happen to good people, they grieve and they suffer. Then they resolve not to allow it to happen to someone else, not so it could help justify the pain, suffering, or loss that has struck their family, but so no one else has to feel the pain that they have felt. Thank you for listening, and I encourage other families to publicly share as we advocate for change within our judicial system, holding the persons responsible for peddling poison. Please visit our website at www.druginducedhomicide.org and find us on Facebook at the Forgotten Victims of Drug-Induced Homicide. Thank you.
Cocaine laced with fentanyl, and as his big sister said, he didn't stand a chance.